Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Tracy McKibben. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee of the Authority, New York Power Authority and New York State Canal Corporation. I want to welcome my fellow committee members, Chairman John Canal and member Dennis Traynor, Ann Kress and Michael Balboni, who are also members of the committee, are excused. I'd like to also welcome the NYPA and Canal Corporation staff to this meeting. This meeting has been duly noticed as required by the Open Meetings Law, and I now call this meeting to order. I think everyone's had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
No.
If there are none, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carried. So at this stage, I think what we will do, the agenda is adopted. We will now ask for Patricia Lombardi, VP Project Management, and Randy Cruz, a consultant for Customer Care Network, to present the first agenda discussion item, the Niagara Power Project, Robert Moses Life Extension and Modernization and Controls Upgrade Program. Patricia and Randy, over to you. Thank you.
Can everybody see the slides?
We're good on this. I'm good. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Chair McKibben, trustees, NYPA, and Canal staff. As mentioned, my name is Patricia Lombardi. I'm the Vice President of Project Management. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Randy Cruz. He's here from Customer Care Network, so we'll be doing this presentation jointly. So we're here today to present the Niagara Power Project, Robert Moses Life Extension and Modernization and Controls Upgrade Program. So here we thought we would just start with a brief overview of the major investments made at our operating facilities over the last approximate 30 years. We're going to start with the Robert Moses Upgrade Program, which started in the early 90s and ran through the mid-2000s. The main objective of this program really was to increase the capacity of the Robert Moses power plant by approximately 200 megawatts and improve the efficiency of the units through modern hydraulic designs. The program at the time included the replacement of the turbine runners with stainless steel alloys, replacement of the generator step-up transformers, amongst other equipment, but the majority of the equipment really wasn't replaced at the time due to the condition and the age. The upgrade was successful and the objective was met, and we saw improved performance, which allowed us for additional marketing capacity in the firm and peaking capacity markets. Program, we embarked on the standardization program, which was conducted on the first 3 units, which were upgraded as part of the larger upgrade program. So amongst other work that was completed, we did install new digital exciters, which were added to the later units so that all 13 units could be conformed. This allowed us, again, to keep up with the modern technology and also allowed us an opportunity to go in and really look at those first units overhauled to really gauge the rate of deterioration. Other investments have been made at Robert Moses over the years, including stator rewinds, restacks, but really the first major life extension and modernization program was embarked at the St. Lawrence facility, starting in the mid-1990s and being completed around 2011. This program was followed by a LEM program at BG, completed in 2013. Moving on to some ongoing work, I'm sure you're all familiar with the LEM program currently going on at the Lewiston Pump Generating Plant at Niagara. We're currently overhauling the 10th of 12 units, which is scheduled to be completed by 2022. That's the entire program completion, with closeout wrapping up in 2023. The transmission LEM program is also underway, where we're replacing or extending the life of our transmission assets across all the regions, extending through 2025. And the next major investment, which we're really here today to talk to you about, is a LEM program at the Robert Moses facility at Niagara, which is estimated at $1.1 billion, extending through 2034.
Trish, if I could ask you, before you, Trish, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah. One question that I had is looking at, because obviously we're talking about Robert Moses today, and you've done this several times of other life extension projects. How have we fared in terms of our track record and making sure that we meet the budget for the request? I mean, you're going to get into what you're asking for, but just looking at some of these projects in the past, can you just give me an indication of, have we tend to be on track with how we've budgeted throughout the years? These are multi-year projects, as we can see.
Sure. Sure. I think I could speak clearly really to the LPGP and TLEM, maybe the most current programs that we have going on. The LPGP LEM program, if you remember a few years ago, the program was really laid out to extend through 2020 at estimated cost of $460 million. We are on track for the 460, but the program did have to be extended by 2 years, just due to some issues with vendors, which we do see from time to time, but these are big programs, large programs, where we do have to adjust and be flexible. So I think from a cost perspective there, we were right on the money in terms of LPGP. Similar situation at TLEM. We learned a lot over the last few years. The scope that we set out at the beginning of TLEM is what I would call very ambitious in a short amount of time, really touching almost every transmission asset that we have. And again, there we've learned a few things. Technology has come a long way since those programs have started, and there too we've had to massage the scope along the way. But there we are intending to finish the majority of TLEM by 2025 in the estimated cost of $726 million. So I do believe our track record is good here, and if anything, these really have lent us to learn lessons. We've learned a lot the good way and the hard way, and that's really helped us put together this Moses LEM program. It's really the best information we have based on this 30-year history and probably there before. So staff does really feel that we've put a solid program together. The schedule is achievable, again, based on what we know today, and the cost is based on, again, what we've learned over these years.
Great, thank you very much. It's good to hear because this is a sizable in comparison to the other ones. So good, thanks.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get a little bit more into the scope, and Randy Creas is going to give you a little bit more of the justification and business case and show you how this investment does compare across other power plants, and he'll give you a better picture of where this number is. The B word, the billion, is a big number for us as well, but I think he'll be able to put that more in context. So just diving a little bit deeper in terms of the scope. So staff really have put together this LEM program to align with NYPA's asset management strategy and increased focus on enterprise resiliency. The scope of the program is largely based on what we learned during the upgrade and the standardization programs, recent maintenance data and experience, information exchanged and provided through NYPA's participation with leading industry groups such as CIATI and EPRI, and specialized testing and analyses that we've conducted over the last 2 years on the machines, which have really made sure that we are able to capture critical design improvements and have been able to help us refine the program cost and estimate. I just want to note that it's important people understand that we've put this program together really based on actual conditions, not just solely the age of the assets. On this slide, we're highlighting the major components, which we've broken down really into 3 categories: replacement, modernization, and rehabilitation. As I think I've said a couple of times, and I probably can't stress enough, is that we've learned a lot of lessons over the years. So we've taken this very large program and really broken it down into 4 major projects. The first is the replacement of the control systems, which includes the complete replacement of the unit and plant controls, as well as the modernization of the existing control room and construction of a new backup control room. The mechanical and the electrical overhauls, which includes replacements of the shafts, wicket gates, head covers, etc. Third is the rehabilitation of the 630-ton gantry crane, which is really vital to the success of this program. And lastly is the penstock platform and assessments. It should be noted that only the penstock platform assessments and recoding of the penstocks are included at this time. Until we perform the detailed assessments, staff cannot really quantify if there are any repairs needed. So if any repairs are identified through the assessments, that will be brought to the board and performed under a separate contract and potentially under a separate program. To this end, along with the first major capital funding request, which we're bringing before the committee today, 2 contract awards are brought before the committee and will be brought to the board on July 30th. These are the penstock platform and the controls upgrade awards. The penstock platform includes the design, fabrication, assembly, and disassembly for each of the 13 penstocks. It's estimated at $69 million and will be awarded to the state group for a 14-year term. While the state group was not the lowest cost submitted, the evaluation team determined that their technical proposal provided the most sound and safest approach for platform construction and utilization. The controls award, estimated at $134 million, including options and escalation, will be awarded to Burns & McDonnell Consultant, again for a 14-year term. The scope of the contract includes the design, fabrication, installation of new digital integrated plant and unit controls, modernization of the existing control room, and construction of a new backup control room. Again, while Burns & McDonnell was not the lowest cost submitted, the evaluation team recognized their proposal as one providing the best value and best selection in terms of reaching our goal to be the first end-to-end digital utility. Their proposal provides for a state-of-the-art control system, one used by many power plants worldwide, and also provides for a software and hardware refresh through the life of the program, which was a lesson learned from previous programs. As mentioned, both contract recommendations are brought to the committee and will be brought to the board on July 30th. These really are the result of an extensive evaluation by NYPA staff and selection of best value proposals in accordance with NYPA's procurement policy and procedures. In terms of the cost estimate, which you can see here on the slide, we've put a breakdown together. I'd like to highlight that the team did conduct a series of qualitative and quantitative workshops to identify risks, assign risk owners, and confirm applicability. The $121 million included is the unmitigated cost for those identified risks. By conducting a Monte Carlo simulation, calculating the minimum and maximum values, and landing at the 80th percentile, which staff really feel comfortable with given the early stages of the program. This is the anticipated cash flow for the program extending to 2034. As part of our risk mitigation strategy, we anticipate releasing work on each of the units in a phased approach to ensure that we can incorporate lessons learned and ensure that continued investment in these assets really makes sense over this very long period of time. To this end, as mentioned earlier, we are requesting the first major capital funding release in the amount of $213 million. Subsequently, we intend to return to the board 4 more times over the life of the program to align with the release of the next set of major contract awards and the release of major unit overhauls, and for any funding associated with contract negotiation terms, something like escalation. As the program progresses, it's quite a number of years, 15 years ahead of us. There may be a need to adjust and adapt. Any major changes to the cash flow and anticipated plan will be brought to the board's attention. At this time, I'd like to introduce Randy Crias. He'll take you through a little bit more about the business case and justification.
Thanks, Trish. Hi, everybody. I'm Randy Crias, president of Customer Care Network. Very tiny consulting firm, but have been around for over 20 years. So what we were asked to do is to help NYPA with the business case. We did 4 essential analyses. The first was to take a look at what would the effect of the LEM be on customer preference rates. Just so everybody knows, right now the cost of service is around $15 a megawatt hour for customers. The market price is around 30, so the customers are getting power for about 50% of market. When we project out the cost of service over the next 15 years to 2034, we essentially see the same pattern. So even though prices are expected to rise over the next 15 years, it still looks as if the preference customers will still enjoy rates that are only about half of market. So from a customer rate impact, even though the rates will go up because of the LEM, they still, relative to market, are about in the same position. The second thing we did was we did a discounted cash flow of the analysis. I've done hundreds of power plant evaluations over my career, and this is really an extraordinary one. Not only is it economic to the tune of around $2.4 billion in net present value, the internal rate of return on it is around 40%. So when you do various sensitivities around, what if the project goes up in cost? What if the discount rate is higher? What if timing changes? It's very, very difficult to see this project not being economic. Again, I can't stress enough, it really is an exceptional NPV from our perspective.
Why is that, Randy? Why do you think we have such an outlier return?
Well, I think the reason, Chairman Colmel, is the marginal costs of the plant are zero. You know, typically we'll be looking at a gas-fired plant where fuel over the life cycle of the plant could represent 50%, 60% of the total cost. Niagara's marginal cost is essentially zero. In addition, the dollars per kilowatt, which I'll talk about in a minute, are very low relative to alternatives. So I think what it amounts to is because you can still enjoy about half the output in some years, maybe only 30 or 40% in others being sold at, it's just an extraordinary margin relative to the embedded cost. The third thing we looked at were some alternative projects. We looked at both conventional combined cycle and simple cycle gas-fired units, and we also took a look at the cost fully embedded of both large-scale solar and large-scale wind. And what we found was in both instances, the Niagara project would be significantly more advantageous for the customers and below market as well. So the alternative projects that could be available to the customers or to NYPA out west are certainly worse than simply proceeding with the LEM as designed. So any questions about those three analyses so far? Finally, just as a kind of another check, we did a kind of a cost benchmark. Went through and tried to find similarly situated, similarly designed plants that were in the 50 to 60, 70-year-old range around the world, really. And we ended up with around 40 or so that were in our panel. We then looked for cost data of what their respective life extension and modernization programs costs. And one of the nice things about a bigger benchmark like this is everybody's working on penstocks, turbines, switch yards, control systems. And what we found when we put it all together is we found that the Niagara LEM was actually around 20% lower in terms of overall cost than the overall panel. So again, it was just another good data point, at least for me, that not only is the plant overwhelmingly economic from a net present value perspective, but even when you look at alternative plants that have been done around the world, it stacks up very, very well.
Randy, I had a question. This actually stood out to me more than any of the other analysis points that you raised, because how is it that we're so much better? Can you explain to me, what are we doing differently than all the other companies, utilities around the world are doing to have our costs so significantly lower for this type of a project?
So I think part of it is due to scale. It's very difficult to find many projects larger than Niagara that are this old. The panel average came out around 800 megawatts. Most of the extremely large plants are that have been developed and that are larger than Niagara are still only 25 to 30 years old, so they haven't really hit this phase yet. So I think what we're getting is, I think because the project is so big, I think we're seeing economies of scale to the project.
Okay, so because you include in this small-scale hydro as a comparison?
No. Every plant in the panel was was at least 100 megawatts.
Okay.
So there were no really small hydros at all. When we selected the representative panel, I was looking for projects that were typically 100 megawatts or more. And indeed, when we finally created the final panel, even cut off some of those that were smaller. So really, we're looking for larger plants. And to find the larger plants, you usually have to go somewhere out west in the U.S. or in Canada. So well over half the panel was either Western utilities, Tennessee Valley Authority, at least in Tennessee, and then there were a number of them that we found in Canada. So I think we're seeing an exceptional plant because it's so large, and I think the other thing that helps Niagara quite a bit is it's because of the Great Lakes Basin is so large and the storage in the lakes is so extraordinary. You're getting more generation out of the unit than would be typical.
Thank you.
Sure.
If I could just add to that.
All further validation to the unique and incredibly high quality asset that we have, obviously. So,
Yeah.
Byproduct of all of this is a further affirmation of how valuable the asset is to the system.
Absolutely, and it's if I could just add to what Randy mentioned about the Great Lakes and the water supply, it's really unique. My recollection is that Niagara is probably the 5th largest plant in the U.S. from a nameplate perspective, but 2nd in generation output because we have such great water supply from the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
a highly efficient project.
Spent a whole career looking at power plant economics. This is probably except for maybe some of the Hydro-Quebec plants, this is probably as good a plant as there is in the eastern United States. It's exceptional.
We like to hear
It's
that.
a great affirmation. Thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to finish up here with a little bit about the schedule and the 5-year outlook. As mentioned earlier, really the first key milestones of this program are the award of the controls upgrade and the penstock platform. The upgrade of the first unit controls is scheduled to commence in the fall of 2020 and be completed in the spring of 2021. Modernization of the existing control room and construction of the backup control room will happen at the same time and also be completed in 2021. And the tie-in of the upgraded controls will be completed as we continue the unit controls through the years. We anticipate awarding the remainder of the long lead items, including wicket gates, shafts, etc., in the first part of 2020, really to take delivery for the first unit LEM scheduled in 2023. As the current schedule is laid out, we'll be able to complete 2 sets of unit controls by 2023. Based on lessons learned, we've allotted a period of time after the first unit controls, really where we're going to monitor the unit's performance, iron out any bugs before we enter into the second unit. For the third outage, we'll be prepared to execute the electrical and mechanical controls concurrently with the unit controls upgrades. So each unit outage thereafter, starting with that third unit, is scheduled for an 8-month outage window, which puts the program completion through 2034. So that's really all we have for you today. Just want to thank everybody very much for their attention, and if there's any additional questions, Randy and I would be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Trish. I appreciate that. It was very, very helpful. Sorry, were you adding something, Gail?
Yeah, Chair McKibben, if I could just, if you may ask, why does it take to do this LEM program, between 2019 and 2034? And the answer really is that we're doing this overhaul work while not degrading our output and what we sell to the market. So it's akin to, when an airplane needs to be repaired, they park it in a hangar and they repair it and then fly again. In our case, we're actually flying and fixing it at the same time. That's why it takes a while. That's why it takes a lot of coordination and synchronization to do these large overhauls while still selling the same amount and servicing the power grid in New York the same way over that program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gil. And it's important to remember that we are balancing regularly scheduled maintenance, transmission outages. There's a lot that goes into putting this large of a program together. So as I mentioned earlier, the team feels confident that we can execute in this way based on lessons learned and past programs and ongoing programs as well.
Great. Thank you. Any other
Trish,
questions from the committee?
Yeah, Trish, can we just go back to the bids, clarify a couple
Sure.
things? for me. So on the integrated controls bids, you've got an outlier bid and two bids that are within, what, 3-4 points of each other. So intuitively, that hangs together. The penstock platform, the disparity in bids is incredibly wide, or so I perceive it. Can you just talk to that a little bit? And your comfort level that we're getting all we want and what we need the way we want it and when we want it, and how and why there'd be such a disparity among the three bids that are reflected here.
Absolutely. So this, the penstock platform actually was bid one time. We did receive two proposals as a result of that first event, but based on evaluations, based on questions and clarifications, the team was not comfortable taking it forward at that time. So we did rebid that event. So what you see here is a result of that rebid. What you see here, it is, the numbers are a bit far apart. Can't say it's something that we always see, but it is not atypical on certain ones of our projects. Whole and ICC, the two other bids that you see there, are firms we have done work with before, but when it came to this specific scope of work, the team did conduct evaluations, extensive evaluation over the last several months, and the proposal put forth by the state group, who is a local vendor to Niagara, they are ISO 9001 certified. The team does feel very comfortable that they understand the scope of work to the correct level of detail, and they have really the most sound and safe approach to the scope of work. The other two vendors were also thoroughly evaluated, but again, at the end of the day, the team felt that the state group really has the best handle on the job, and they really put the right fit proposal together for this scope of work.
So I'm just amazed at the disparity in bids there, though. So I'm not challenging it, just really surprised. Obviously, those three bids are from local providers or locally based providers. The others are out of state, ensuring we've appropriately pursued in-state enterprises. I know we span the globe literally to get the work that we need done, but we're confident we've exhausted all our state-based or more locally based providers and suppliers here?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, as part of that rebid effort, we did work closely with our strategic supply management group to really extend further out into the supply base, whether that was local or really anywhere across the world with the work that we do. So I believe they were successful in doing that, given that we did receive 3 bids the next go-around. I think, though, when you do look at it as a package, there were definitely certain exceptions, whether they were technical, commercial, by the vendors. So really all of these things come together when we do bid evaluations. So the numbers do seem a bit skewed on this one. But again, not to really repeat myself, the team really does feel this is the right fit,
Yep.
the right proposal for this scope of work.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks, Trish and Randy. I will now ask for a motion to adopt the recommendation from management.
I'm happy to make the motion or second Dennis's motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, team. We will now move forward. Joe Kessler, EVP and COO, will present the next item on our agenda, which is the RM Flynn Power Plant Long-Term Service and Extended Parts Agreement. Joe?
Thank you, Chairman McKibben. We tried to find a longer acronym, but that's about the best we could do.
I know, yeah.
So this is in regard to our Flynn Power Plant. If someone could advance the slide for me there, if there's the slide there. But the Flynn Power Plant is out on Long Island. It was commissioned in May of 1994, so it's been 25 years in service at about 2,700 terawatt hours of service for us. So a very reliable plant for us over the years out on Long Island. The facility is in need of a major combustion turbine maintenance work really in the first quarter of 2020 and other work in order for the plant to operate competitively in the New York energy market. And it's one of the most competitive markets they have in the ISO zone J and K. So the highlights around this are to secure a flexible and more affordable operation and maintenance financial profile for the R.M. Flynn's combustion and steam turbines, maximize our O&M investments to continue to support NYPA's mission in the energy sector, and of course alignment with our asset management and reliability center maintenance practices. So the idea here is really to find the most economical way to do O&M on this plant. What we do with the plants that we have out in our CNE region are really based on a frequency of run hours, equivalent run hours, versus what you see mostly in the upstate facilities, which is kind of a frequency-based and condition-based monitoring that we do in asset management. So we have real-time monitoring on all these units now. We keep an eye on that in our ISOC, and there are also recommendations that come from the equivalent run. We don't have visibility inside the combustion and steam turbine operations. So we based all these decisions on that assessment. So for the purposes of this meeting, what we're looking to do is request the trustees to approve a $45 million contract with Siemens for the maintenance of the authority's plant for the combined cycle combustion and steam turbine to take us into the next decade or two of operations of this plant. And with that, I would open to any questions that you may have.
Joe, it wasn't clear to me that Siemens currently, is that who we're contracting with currently for the O&M work? And this is an extension of an existing contract, and has that contract expired? Can you help me with that?
Yes, the Siemens is under contract right now. It is an extension, and it's a little bit of a modification. So right now what we have is there's some known tasks and replacements that we foresee that we put a quantity on. We're able to negotiate specific quantities and values for each one of those items. So this is an extension, but it's also based on what it is with the current contract. If we were to extend it as it is, it results in about an $8 million savings over the period of the entire contract. So basically what it is, we've now defined the scope a little bit better under this contract. We kind of know a little bit more accurately based on our condition monitoring and our other experience what might be needed in this, and we negotiated around those pieces of equipment to make sure we're optimizing the O&M of the plant.
So are we sort of amending an existing contract, which will be a cost saving for us, if I think I understood you correctly?
Right. We're modifying the scope on the extension of an existing contract, right?
Okay.
The cost savings relative to the historic run rate, you're saying, Joe?
Yeah, if we were to operate in the same way, we use the operation paradigm the same on both analyses with the existing paradigm and with this new contract. Basically it's the same scenario as far as the run rate and the equivalent operating hours.
But you wouldn't rebid this? Or you didn't rebid this?
I have to actually defer to Tim on this. I think Tim Zandis is in the room over there on the actual bid process, Tim.
Yes, we rebid this in late 2017, and we started negotiating with SSM and Siemens in early 2018, and it's taken us over a year to negotiate this new contract. It was bid. Siemens is the OEM, and they were the only bidder to this to our RFP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, other manufacturers can't be necessarily competitive with this type of equipment.
So this is closure on a process that started a couple of years ago.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for the clarity. I'm happy to move it. Tracy?
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
At this time, the next joint finance committee meeting is scheduled for November 20th, 2019. I ask for a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to closing the meeting? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you.